After the Mongol invasion, which is going to end both the Abbasid dynasty and also the golden age of Islam, there will be late empires that will rise out of the ashes of Mongol control. These will produce, in particular, three magnificent empires. Among those, and this week we're going to take a look at two, and then when we get to India, ultimately we will look in more detail at the third. The first is the Safavids, who are going to rule in Iran or ancient Persia. You can find them on all three maps. The one on the left, bottom left, of course, is a Safavid map, but it's perhaps easiest to see them and the vast territory that they controlled in the map on the lower right. It also shows that they are between the Ottomans, located to the west of them. This is the Safavids, this is the Ottomans, and then they are adjacent to the Mughals, who are located in India. The Safavids are particularly important to us because they are the most influential of the three late empires in terms of art and culture and also writing. They're especially important in terms of manuscript illumination, and I would like you to listen and read carefully the material from Smart History, which presents manuscript illumination and a little general history on the Safavids. Their manuscript painting, as well as their poetry, is still particularly respected, viewed, and read in the Muslim world today. It is through the Safavids that Iran, modern Iran, has gained a sense of pride and national identity. That remains until today. And that might give you maybe a little understanding of why world politics today are working the way that they do. The Safavids established their empire as a Shia or Shiite empire, in contrast to the two Sunni neighbors that kind of wedge in on the borders of the Safavid territory. A Shia believes that the ruler should come from the family line of the Prophet. That means from the Prophet Muhammad. The Sunnis, in contrast, who simply try and live as an example, following the example of the Prophet, will accept any able ruler. These two divisions have marked the history of Islam since the 7th century. The Safavids have claimed, in fact, at least in their origin myths, to be descended from the family of the Prophet and from the Shiite imams or leaders, early leaders, religious leaders within the faith. In addition to that, that wasn't quite enough for them. They also claimed to be descended from the last Sasanian kings. Okay, the Sasanians were a great Persian empire present at the time of conquest by the Arabs, who took the territory and brought it into the world of Islam. Point being, the Safavids did what many cultures around the world have done, and that is to create their own origin story or their own history. This particular history marks them as unique, as special, and is linked to the family of the Prophet. There are about 15% people in the world who are Shia, who practice Shiism, and about 85% of the world folks practice Sunni Islam. That does mean that modern-day Iran remains in the minority in terms of Islamic practice, but at the same time, they still have great pride in their heritage, and that foundation was established at the time the Safavids rose to power, making Safavid history particularly important, especially when that history is shored up with magnificent, impressive works of art. This is a slide just to look at that will help you to remember that. Don't worry too much about the details. What I would like you to know is that the Safavids are Shia. I don't think, or Shiite, as you see the word written right here. You do not need to worry about the sect, which is Twelver. They do claim to be descended from Muhammad and the Shia imams, and they claim to be descended from the last Sasanian kings. What you should be aware of is that they have essentially created, like many people do, a mythic past to enhance the national pride of the people in the country in the present day. This is just a summary of that. Iran is characterized even today by a sense of pride, a sense of pedigree, and that means going back to the family line of the Prophet Muhammad, and a sense of uniqueness, being wedged in between territory that is held by opposing sects of Islam. The bottom line at the end of the day is a great sense of national pride. If that national pride is not given due respect in international politics, which is often the case, then you begin with difficulties in working with, negotiating with the present day country of Iran, which is often the case. The Safavids even create a new capital, Shah Abbas, and Shah is a designation that refers to the ruler in Iran. So the Shah, or the prince or the ruler, decided to move the capital away from Tabriz in the north down to the southern area, and it was near a caravan route, so it was practical in at least one way, to Isfahan. This move, however, was really driven by, I'm going to say, a little bit of an unease with their Turkish neighbors. There had been border conflicts and incursions. The Turks had come into Iranian territory, and the Iranians decided simply, as a cautionary measure, to set up a new capital. This capital was intended to be also an economically successful capital. And we're looking right now at the main square. There are four anchors. There is the palace located here. It is opposed by a religious building, a mosque over here. And we're looking from the direction of the Great Bazaar, which is, of course, an economic foundation for the city. And that is opposed to this, which is the most important mosque in the city of Isfahan. This is a closer look at the city, at the Central Plaza. That is an important place of activity. We're looking again, from the direction of the bazaar, and this is the archway, so imagine that you are inside the bazaar. And I have a couple pictures for you of what that experience would look like. It would be filled with activity, with people, with buying, with selling, and it's also a place where people share news, and I guess you could also say where people share gossip. So it's a particularly important economic and community center, activating the entire Maidan, or public square that was so important in Isfahan. This is an aerial showing you the end of the square with the great mosque located on it. This would be the Friday Mosque, meaning that this would be the mosque, the largest, most important mosque, where men would be required to gather for noon prayers and a sermon. So this is the end of that central square that we just looked at, and this is the mosque. When it was time to put a mosque there, Shah Abbas said to his architect, well, put a mosque there. And the architect said to the Shah, well, I can't put it directly on the square. And the Shah said to the architect, put a mosque there. So what the architect had to do, because this end of the central plaza does not face Mecca, was to shift the mosque at a slight angle, off of the central plaza, and create the illusion, and that's what this is, of an entranceway that does put you on alignment with the city of Mecca. And if we go back here, this would be the Qibla wall, under this great dome, there's going to be a mihrab, so that the mosque, set at a new angle to the central square, now meets the requirements of facing the direction of Mecca. This was known as the Shah Mosque, but today, now that the Shah has been deposed, this has commonly come to be known as the Mosque of the Imam. This is the portal that opens onto the Great Square. This is the portal that opens into the area of the Shan inside the space of this great mosque. I have walked this, and when I did that, I was really unaware of the fact that I was being redirected. So the architect was incredibly skilled in shifting our orientation without actually making us aware of it, so that we arrive and we come out into an open space that makes us feel like we have correctly approached the mosque. The great dome that we're looking at right here, which exists over the prayer hall, is incredibly beautiful. It's been created, decorated on the outside with tile work, and as you will recognize, the main color is blue. Blue is very favored by the Safavids. Of course, it's associated with the sky, with the heavens, but probably more significantly, it's associated with water. And water, of course, is required for life in a dry region, but more than that, it is associated with paradise in the Quran, where we have repeated descriptions of paradise being a place that is lush, filled with rivers running through it. Another view, this is the way we enter off the central square, coming into the Shan or the courtyard. But when we get there, we have a slightly different experience than we have encountered in other mosques. And the reason for that is this is a unique floor plan for Iranian mosques. We come in and we discover that there are 4 iwans covered in rich tile work of Muqarnas decoration. And Mr. O'Reilly gives you, this is the one in O'Reilly, gives you figure 2.19. First, what is an Iwan? The 4 Iwan plan is Iranian or Persian, ancient Persian. It does come from the Sasanians, that ancient and very impressive Persian culture, which ruled at the time of Arab conquest, that the Safavids are claiming to descend from. So they're going back to a Sasanian, their ancestors, they claim. They're going back to a source of design used by their ancestors, and it is the use of an Iwan. An Iwan is a vaulted hall or room that is open on one side or on one end. So it's a kind of concave architectural structure. And it often is used, it may be used as an entranceway. It highlights in a very dramatic way, an entranceway to a room or a building. And in this case, it is richly decorated in Muqarnas, and that's what all of this is. Now, at this point, you should have encountered Muqarnas decoration at the Alhambra, located in Spain, in Granada. And you should be familiar with it. It is the Spanish, the Moorish branch of Islam that is going to create this type of decoration. And it is really a good form of decoration. It's actually, I know it looks light, but it actually is supportive, and it's going to spread throughout the Muslim world. But in particular, it's going to be picked up by the Safavids because it echoes so easily their sense of delicacy in architecture. And I think also when you look at their manuscripts, you will see a sense of delicacy there as well, implying a kind of lightness to the structure when in fact the structure is extremely strong. Okay, so in this plan, one of the things that makes it Iranian and unique is that there are 4 Iwans. So this is the 4 Iwan plan, but at the same time, those Iwans are richly broken up with Muqarnas decoration. Incredible tile work.